I didn't really have a fear. It's not because I'm like psychotic or anything. Maybe a little, depends who you ask. But the fear wasn't really there because I had lots of training. I literally had like 20 years of training.
Today's episode is brought to you by our sponsor, Inner West Hemp. Be sure to visit them online for all your CBD needs. This is the same company that I use daily, from tinctures to rub-ons to CBD gummies. Some of their products are even USADA approved. Be sure to use the code JAMP, 15% off at checkout. What's up, guys? Today's guest is a former member of the Canadian national team and one of the creators of Freestyle Trampoline. Please welcome to the JAMCast, Mr. Greg Roe. What's up, man?
What up, Travis? Great to be on your show, buddy. I've been watching several of them. They're really awesome, and I'm glad to be part of it.
Dude, I appreciate you making the time, dude. I love the legendary Greg Roe shirt, too.
I know. It became a thing. It wasn't actually my thing. We got it from Nitro Circus, and they made us, not made us, but they got us to wear their little shirts when we did their little dance on the ramps. And then I wore it to the first GT games back in like 2017. People loved it because it was California vibes, and it just sort of stuck ever since.
Dude, it's perfect, especially when you're in a crowd, too. Like, we could spot you a mile away.
It worked. It was more utilitarian than anything, but also a bit of marketing, so it's win-win.
That's genius, man. Well, yo, it's great to finally talk with you on our platform here. I've been a longtime follower of you. I feel like we've interacted online via social media for years and years, all the way back to way before you even started what you're doing nowadays with GRT and everything like that.
Yeah, it's been a long time. We've been at this for about 10 years. I've been following, obviously, tricking's been around longer than this whole freestyle trampoline thing. So we're taking a lot of stuff that I've seen from you guys and from, all the different trickers and parkour guys and everything. And we're looking at that and studying it as we kind of develop our own thing.
That's absolutely amazing, man. And I know I'm sure a lot of our listeners and followers are going to recognize you for your Instagram as well, because in recent years, it's become almost like a platform just to showcase tons of different talented people from all walks of life, right?
Exactly, and that actually comes from my coach, because when I was a kid, he would wheel in those old TVs, on the stand that strap them down, and he'd be like, "Okay, guys, you're gonna watch the world's best, and then I'm gonna cry because you're not as good as them, but hopefully you'll get inspired," And then we were like, "Oh, okay, let's go," and he would then let us pick the skills, even if we weren't ready, but we'd go and then train the skills just for fun after being pumped up, and it was that motivation that sparked that that building process of all the skills. And that always stuck with me as, a lot of coaches jump to the facts, but they forget the biology of getting people to want to do it. And that's where I stick kind of with that sort of, let's showcase what can be done so you can take that back to your training and hopefully get inspired so you can do something new your next training.
That's super cool, man. And for any of our listeners that have always wanted to get featured on your page, how do you select those videos? Are they submitted by users? Is this stuff that you come across while visiting Instagram yourself and you curate a list? How do you come up with what gets posted?
It's a bit of a mix. I have a rough strategy in my head, which is, one fail, 5 or 6 good videos. Because I like to show both sides. I can't have this utopian world where no one ever gets hurt or anything. And it shows the reality. Plus, they're kind of funny, some of them. One time I posted this girl, I don't know if you remember it. She did a backflip on her G-Tramp and ended up peeing all over the thing. And it went super viral, and I got tons of traction on that video. I started getting parents messaging me saying, "How could you share this?" And I was like, I guess I gotta be a little more careful, So, but I will go around and I'll see videos. People send me tons of videos, so most of them just come from people. But then I'm also just kind of exploring around and seeing what's being done, because a lot of times people send you stuff that's like, "Oh, look, I learned a new cartwheel." Like, come on, have you not seen the rest of the stuff on the page? Like, it's cute, and I'll help you. Here's my educational program, but that's a whole different thing. So you filter through that, but there's a lot of good gems that people send, and then I'll find stuff. So it's a little bit of everything, but it's just the best stuff, that I can find that hopefully will inspire people to, take it to the next level.
That's wild, man. And so I kind of have a unique question, which is, because your channel right now is so popularized and well known for showcasing people from around the world and stuff like that, is there ever a sense of a weirdness, in the sense that I feel like some people may not even know how badass you are, for lack of a better term, because I personally grew up watching like all the Greg Roe videos and all of your stuff that still exists on YouTube. And now your platform, instead of showcasing yourself, showcase other people, so much so that I feel like a lot of people don't even know the man behind the account.
You know, and that's a pro and a con. You know, I'm not one of these guys that wants to run around vlogging all day long, you know, and doing that stuff, which I like those guys. That's all fun and it's entertaining. But at the end of the day, I'm more of a business guy. I want to create a good platform that allows people to enjoy acrobatics for at least the reason I enjoy it. You know, I don't enjoy all the vlog. I could watch one vlog and that's it. I couldn't watch it again, you know, and I also am traveling on a planes and this, that, and the other. And as you know, when you're under a confidentiality agreement, you can't post anything anyway. So when I was doing all these stunts, it was like, okay, America's Got Talent, Germany's Got Talent, Nitro Circus, Action Figures, the movie, this, that, and the other. I can't talk about that. Devin's video happened 6 months before I could even mention it. You know what I mean? So what do I post? Coming soon? Nah. So it was like, all right, I have an issue right now. As I was being an influencer back in the earlier days, that was back when Damian Walters and these guys were going out kind of in his sort of terrain. And we actually did some videos together and all that. But then after you do it for a while, you realize that it gets you a platform, it gets you kind of out there, but it doesn't solve your problem. You're not going to do America's Got Talent every year for the rest of your life. It's just not going to work. You got a couple years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, depending on your strategy. And then the new guy's coming up with a different way. And without you completely altering everything you're doing, you're going to have to eventually say, I have a shelf life. So I've been okay with that. And I've retired into promoting everyone else because that's where the future is. The future isn't with me. I took trampoline and brought it up a level, went to some cranes and did some crazy shit off cranes. That's great. And that's my contribution. And I'm happy. But there's so many contributions that everyone else is bringing to the table that it almost seems a little bit arrogant for me to only talk about myself. I like the idea of showing what everyone else is doing because it gives you a more worldly view.
Definitely. Well, hopefully today will be a platform where I can, instead of you talking about yourself, I can help talk about you because, like I said, I followed your career for so long that like this is really cool for me to be able to help maybe showcase to a lot of the younger generation where all of this freestyle trampoline craziness came from. And you kind of alluded to it. I mean, you were basically the guy that went viral on Devin's Supertramp video back in 2014. There was a crazy trampoline video that's got like 6 million plus views and stuff like that. But even taking it a step further back, I mean, I remember all the way back to the videos of you doing insane stuff like trying to do a backflip with 8 twists, right? Like octuple twists full, right? Like, and if I'm not mistaken, you also did the first on trampoline quad to quad combo.
I'm pretty sure it's the first.
It's probably one of the first ones.
Got quad to quad to quad. So close. But I put my hands down, and that was after I ended up doing quad to half and quad flat back on the frame pad from like 25 feet. And I was like, oh, and my coach said, no, get your ass up, stop being a little punk. And I was ready. I'm like, oh, my back, I was coughing up blood. And he's like, no, just do it. And Chris Mitchell, he was awesome. He was an old, like an old guy that did double mini. He was a legend back in the day for Canada. And he was my coach. He was a very freestyle hands-on coach, but he knew when to tell me, hey, get up and stop being a little punk. And that really helped me get up and go. So thanks to Chris for that one. But that was my favorite one because I was so close. I remember telling the Chinese team after the World Cup, I'm gonna do 3 quads, and they just I was writing it out in script at the airport. I was like, guys, yeah, I'm gonna do it, and they're like, what the hell is this guy doing? And I was coming up with this crazy stuff, 8 twists. I'm gonna do 8 cat twists. No one had done that sort of stuff really, you know, at least not on video.
Yes.
You know? It was the video that we got started with, just like Damien, just like all these guys. Aaron Wheels from Nitro got his start with Devin and all that sort of stuff. It was us kind of capitalizing on social media boom and being kind of first to the plate, and then kind of using that to jumpstart what our business would be like.
Totally. And so like of all the things that you've done, you know, from like full Rudy, triple backflip with 5 twists, the quad, what has been the most difficult combo you've landed, and what's the combo that you're most proud of landing?
I don't know. I have to say that my favorite trick that I did was a quadruple front half out landed.
Yes.
It's not a combo, but it was my favorite because it took the longest for me to get. Believe it or not, the videos that you saw in like compilation 1 to 4, we went to the gym one day and just said, hey, I'm going to throw some new stuff. And I got it within a couple tries. You
No
know,
way.
that one with the quint half out, that was my first quint. And that one, I literally remember like a couple of times when I did it, and I literally land on my stomach, not even realizing what had happened. And my hands are down, like I was kicking out like a professional trampoline guy, and I was just like, oh my god, that could have been game over right there. So that one I had to fight for a couple months to get landed.
Damn.
And then yeah, and I would say, oh yeah, and this one with the quintuple, so we call it ball outs. So you land on your back, you kick your feet down, you do 5 flips and land back on your back. And there's a school group that came in at the gym, and Dave Ross, my old coach, he was pitting me for this. And I remember that time feeling my head do this as I went on that 5th one. And he's like, "No, you're not going to make it." I'm like, "I'm going to do it." That's the kind of kid I was. You can see how I had issues with that routine stuff.
That is crazy, man. And so I got to ask inherently, along with all of the crazy, risky moves that you've done in combos, have you ever sustained any injury? I know there was a fall at Nationals one time that you posted online where you hit your head, but have you ever sustained any serious injury while trying to do these groundbreaking moves?
It depends. Yeah, a lot. I was trying to be diplomatic because I don't know if some people want to hear the injuries, but let's put it this way. I was a gymnast first. And I just always did stupid stuff. I never listened to my coach. I got kicked out of my very first gym when I was 6 years old for not standing in line for vault. So that's the kind of kid you're dealing with here. And I haven't got any better. I've just pretended to. But, so I'm that guy. So I remember one time I was running around the floor doing a little warm up, and there was a little cheese there, you dive roll onto the cheese. And I was like, oh, and you're running around, you're eyeing it. You're like, oh, I see you over there, cheese. I'm going to get you next time. And I run, and the next time I do like a dive roll. And there's concrete because this is back in, I don't know, earlier in the day when there wasn't as much crazy equipment now. And it was just concrete between a pommel horse, concrete, mat, concrete. So I jump over the concrete thinking I'm fine, and I land directly on my head right before the cheese. So the cheese is here, and I land bang right here. But this is when my coaches would beat the crap out of me if I had done that. So I get up, I'm dizzy, but I pretend to get back in. I'm like, oh, and I did a lot of that sort of stuff, falling off a mini tramp, smashing my head on the frame, thinking I could use a mini tramp as a wall trampoline. Not a good idea. Nope, I was too big. One time I broke both my wrists on pommel horse. That wasn't really a huge injury. That was just overuse. I've been very lucky that I haven't had any medium injuries. Like I've never actually broken an arm. I've never broken a leg. I've sprained and torn stuff a little bit, but nothing too crazy. So I've gone from 0 to absolute death. So we did a video, and people don't actually know this. I'm not going to say the brand. We did a brand with a video with Devin Supertramp that people don't know I was actually part of, because I didn't actually become a part of it because I wrecked myself literally the first day. So, and this is a big production and everything, and it's actually done very well. And on the first day, I'm playing around. So what happened is they had trampolines everywhere, and they were using a, what do you call it, like a glide cam?
Gimbal?
Yeah, like a gimbal glide cam kind of thing. You know how Devin's guys do it. And there was a rip in the trampoline so that they could use the glide cam and get unique shots. And, Trish, my business partner, says, "Greg, don't forget there's a hole in that trampoline," right? Yeah, exactly, right? And I'm like, oh, yeah, it's fine, I got it. And I'm already kind of into that, that mode, that, like, video mode. And all I know is I'm doing side flips as they're going. They're shooting the films and stuff. I'm doing some side flips. And all of a sudden, I realize I'm going through this hole. And I'm literally just like this. And I fall down. I think they told me it was about 15 feet. I smashed my head on a bunch of steps and landed on my back. And I was knocked out, head bleeding everywhere. I quickly come back into consciousness. And in my head, this is still back in the day when I was still really trying to get up and get going, with my career. And I was like, crap, I'm going to ruin this. I got to go. So I quickly jump up, and I'm obviously going on pure adrenaline at this point. And I keep telling the guys, everyone's like, oh my God, Greg's screwed. We got to get him to the hospital. I'm like, no, I'll finish the video. You guys don't know anything. I'm fine. Look. And I end up doing this, and there's just blood and like guts and stuff off my head, and my hair is coming out. I'm like, oh, it's fine. And I'm like, let's go, So they're like, no, Greg, we're not letting you obviously go. So they forced me into an ambulance. And then the funniest part about that story, besides going through the hole that I was told not to go through, was that then when I'm in the hospital, I don't remember all the in between, of course, and I had like obviously severe amnesia and all this sort of stuff, and I got stitches and everything's fine. And then when I woke up, though, I could only smell cheeseburgers. And no matter what you put in front of me, it could have been vegetables. It could have been anything. It could have been poo-poo. I would have smelled bacon cheeseburgers. And that happened for a couple months, but it did go away. And so that was probably one of the worst injuries. I got an x-ray once, and I have actually like busted my spine a whole bunch of times. So my spine kind of looks like a Jenga block. Everything's off by a little bit, you know, just from all the stuff. But I guess, yeah, no major injuries, but definitely a lot of close calls. And that one cracking my head open, I guess, was the big one. But then I was up the next couple of days, again, just getting my career started. I was up coaching next couple of days with I had a hoodie on because I was so cold. I hit the hypothalamus, which is the back part of the temperature regulator, right? And I hit that really hard. So I was freezing all the time, you know, and then so I get into the gym and I have my glasses because I was sensitive to light for the same reason. And I have glasses on with a big hoodie and I'm coaching kids that I don't really know at like a clinic. And I'm like, oh, it wasn't good. But we got through it. It was a good memory.
That is an epic story, man. That is crazy. I mean, I know you just talked to me the other day about some stunt stories. That's right up there with that. That's pretty wild, man.
Yeah, well, the clients, they were very good about it. No one raised any alarms. Everything's good. We're still actually good friends with everybody that was in on it, and it was perfectly fun.
That's awesome, man. And now you kind of alluded to it, like you were a kid that didn't really do well with structured gymnastics and having to go through the normal competitive levels. And I know at a certain point you walked away from team level and then really just started focusing on trampoline, but still within like a team aspect, right? And you were, correct me if I'm wrong, you were on the Canadian junior national team and competed at nationals?
I was on the senior team, but yeah, you got to go through junior to get to senior.
Awesome. That's amazing. And so how many years did you compete at that level before you decided, okay, this competition and structure still isn't for me?
Not that long. I was just in it for a couple years, and I basically didn't have another option. You know, freestyle stuff didn't really pop off back then. That was 2009, 2010 kind of thing, and it was still getting going. Damon was just putting out his stuff, and then people were starting to figure out what's going on. And for me, I just basically said, look, guys, this really isn't for me. But me being who I am, I basically, let's say, ruffled a bunch of feathers on the way out. So I competed going from gymnastics until I was about 17. I was actually a gymnast most of my life. And then because I had a gymnastics background, I could easily go on a trampoline and just kind of modify it a little bit. And I had the strength that a lot of these guys really didn't have. So I could quickly catch up with the spatial awareness and all that sort of stuff and just linking the routines. But then it just became, okay, well, and this is going to sound really bad, but I was like, where's my money? Where am I getting paid? Where's my career? Where's my business? What do I do? You won the Olympics. You came back and just then went back to your regular life. Okay. Oh, you won the Olympics again and then went back to your regular life. Okay. There's a big problem here. And what happened to me, I started seeing these kind of behaviors happening. And I just started getting into conflict with the team and everything just because I was that guy that said, you know, screw you guys. I'm not going down your rabbit hole, right? And I used to think of it as a rabbit hole. Now, being a bit more mature, I see it just as an alternative. But to me, when I was in that moment, this is a rabbit hole. I'm ruining my life by being on this team, basically, is what my brain was saying. It does help, depending on which side of the spectrum you're on, because then my business partner, Trish, comes in and says, okay, we're gonna start working with you. I used to coach her daughter. So that's how I got hooked up with her. She used to do freestyle rally racing. She used to rally with John Buffum, who knows like Travis Pastrana and these guys. She used to know Travis back when he was a little kid, basically. You know, so she comes from that kind of world. And that's where I wanted to go because that's where I saw the sponsorship. I saw the money. I saw the branding. I saw the social media. That's why I was like, okay, trampoline, I need to get out of these tights and get into something a little bit more lucrative and more fulfilling. You know, and so she basically said, and this, I'll never forget it. We sat down at Starbucks. I didn't know who she was. I didn't know what I was doing. I go to her and say, hey, I want to go to Rio Olympics. And I got a bunch of years, but help me out. She said, why would you want to do that? And I was like, My entire life is dependent on that. What do you mean? I've been told that the Olympics is the ultimate thing any human being should strive for. What are you talking about? And she's basically like, well, okay, what are you going to get out of it? I'm like, well, it's about $30,000 to $50,000 from Canada if you win. She's like, that's it? I'm like, yeah, it's something like that. There's a bit of endorsements, but nothing really. She's like, oh my God, no. And even if you're going to get endorsements, where are you going to put the branding? What do you mean? I thought they're just going to give me free money.
Yeah.
That was my kind of, young kid attitude. And she quickly gave me a lesson in sponsorship and said, you're not going to get sponsors on Team Canada. They won't even legally let you. Remember, you're not legally allowed to have sponsors that don't go through the federation. And they do it because they can control the image and all that sort of stuff. So I understand. But it means that all the doors for revenue and for business development and doing anything purposeful with my life, unless I was going to win and then write a book and do all that stuff, which I still didn't really want to do, I had everything closed. So I didn't see an opening. So we basically said, you know what, there's no opening in this market. I'm not going to go own a gym. I'm not going to just coach my entire life. That gets boring real fast. I need to do something. So let's go invent a market. And that was when the Nitro Circus thing started happening. And we got some behind the scenes with all that. Got to talk to Travis about it. And he basically said the same thing. He was like, well, if you've done it once, why are you going to do it again? When you've done one routine, why would you do it again? Either do it better or do it different, but don't repeat life over and over again. So that was all happening at that sort of same time. I was transitioning from basically an automaton robot that thought the Olympics was the be all and end all to someone who saw more globally where the future could hopefully go if we did the right things.
That's wild. And so when you made the decision to leave the national team and just focus kind of, I guess, on training trampoline for yourself, how did that work out? Because obviously you're no longer a member of a team. Did you have to pay to go to these gym sessions, or did you have a relationship with a gym that allowed you to train? Because obviously once you disassociate with being a team member, you're just like a normal patron, right? So how did that work out?
Well, actually, we basically lied to them. So, so what happened is, and I know there's going to be some Canada people right doing this right now, but whatever. And what happens, I knew I was out, and Dave knew I was out. They all kind of knew I was out about a year before I actually left. And because I was already skipping training to go and do the bag jump stuff. I was already skipping training to go and do this and to do that. And I just was showing up later. It's like a girlfriend. When they just show that lack of interest, you know that the time is coming, right? Yeah, so I was already stacking my deck while I was training. So I was producing a bunch of those videos as stockpiling for my exit. Nice. It was also to see if I would get into Cirque du Soleil, because I was doing that at the same time, but I didn't really want to do Cirque. I'd have to uproot my entire life to Montreal. Didn't want to do that, so I was already building that. And then I remember one day I wake up and I get an email, and it was from Dave, and said, basically, you're not part of the team anymore because you don't have the right attitude, or you don't have our attitude. Can't remember exactly what he said, but basically they were kicking me off team. But then literally the next day, I basically called up Trish and a couple other mentors that we had, said, all right, we're going. And we were literally on a plane the next day, literally. And then we were going off to Europe to start doing more bag jump events and stuff. And it was all pre-planned, so there wasn't a delay. And we did that on purpose. So I played the game so that I could use that facility until I was ready to go,
Okay, totally. And for those people that don't know what you just mentioned briefly there, that's also something that I remember from all of your videos back in the day around like circa 2013, 2014 was all of the bag jump stuff, which for people that don't know, you teamed up with a company that was basically putting out giant airbags, and you were doing crazy stunts like climbing on the top of cranes and doing insane double, triple, quadruple flipping and twisting moves to these airbags and stuff like that. And obviously drawing upon the experience and the body awareness that you had from trampoline. And so my question for you is when you're doing the bag jump stuff and when you're doing the trampoline stuff, do you ever get nervous? And if you did, how did you overcome the fear of that in order to pull off these amazing feats? Because a lot of them had never been done before.
Yeah. I don't know how to answer this without sounding dumb. I will say that fundamentally, I didn't really have a fear. It's not because I'm like psychotic or anything. Maybe a little, depends who you ask. But the fear wasn't really there because I had lots of training. I literally had like 20 years of training under my belt when I was doing these things. So it wasn't like I just woke up one day and said, hey, there's guy, Danny, he's jumping 52 meters off a crane. Why can't I do that? No, it was, if we built it up, everything is systematic in my world. I was trained, and that's the good thing the traditional side did teach me. I didn't like the politics that was going on, but the training aspect that gave me that structure, 30 hours a week in the gym, that gives you a very good template of what to expect and what to not expect. And so that therefore, when I go to a new thing, I really just built it up like I did in the gym. I just basically showed people that only stayed in the gym that you can do this outside. You can do it in a different way. And the mechanics still make sense. The progress still makes sense. Just it looks different. Don't forget the underlying pathway to success. And if you actually fill in all the gaps, we have this rotational model of education where instead of the 2D sort of do this, then this, then this, we look at it more holistically, saying there is infinite possibilities. And if you understand the similarity between all these different skills, the similarity between a Yurchenko and a Kong, and the similarity between a backflip and a back full, and all this stuff that seems different on the surface, you realize underneath all that, they're very similar mechanics. And once you really understand that, fear doesn't even come in, because why would you have fear? Fear is the unknown. I don't have an unknown. My worldview encompasses all of it. And that's where the freestyle educational system has really developed out of that sort of mantra of simplifying everything to very common repeating principles.
Okay. And that makes a lot of sense, man. I don't think you sound dumb or reckless by any means. A lot of the top tier athletes that we talk to over time, they all basically kind of reiterate the same thing, which is like the existence of fear obviously does exist in the world, but a lot of them are able to, push that down because of all the years of experience and training, and they're able to trust themselves and their bodies. And now one of the things you just kind of touched on, which I was going to segue into, so you did it perfectly, is that one of the things that you're known for in your coaching method is, like you said, you don't go off of the standard 2-dimensional model of training. You've kind of implemented a 3-dimensional model of training. And I know you also implement stacking and ways to build skills and things like that. Can you just maybe just further expand upon what you just briefly talked about and the differences between the two for someone that's like a layman out there?
Yeah. I don't want to get into too much of the history of it, but if you look at gymnastics training and trampoline training way back in the day, and you talk to all the legends, like I'm talking about Wayne Miller and these guys back in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, these guys, basically, it was a trial and error process. And that's what it's always been. And it still is today. But what we're doing is refining that trial and error process. So we're doing a lot less trialing, and hopefully with that, less erroring. That's kind of the theory that some coaches will go to. I, on the other hand, say, well, you can't have good without the bad. So to try to dampen the entire thing by not having people explore what the possibilities are in the name of safety really just means you just don't even do the sport at all. You're basically just a robot that just is told instructions, kind of like the Turing machine. You feed it instructions, and then it pumps out answers, kind of thing, right? Now, the Turing machine was still better than the previous models, and it was the first one that they used in World War II to really help you actually create new novel solutions to, standard inputs. But I'm not going to get into all that. But that was what gymnastics was. The coach tells you the input, it feeds through you, you do the behavior, and then you ask for next, coach, next. Right, that's where it is, and it was actually pretty good. Like, that was a revolutionary compared to just randomly throwing yourself in the 40s, or in 34 when the trampoline was invented. George Nissen and all that. They were just trial and error, anything. So they systematized it, so it made sense. But what's happening now is we're seeing kids get out in the real world, and they're not staying in the gym. They're not saying that I want to follow your path. They're saying I want to create my own path. I did that. Trish did that. All you freestyle guys are doing the same thing. Right? They want to make their own path. And how are you going to make your own path if you don't understand, using our road analogy here, if you don't know how the car works, then you just because you're sitting in an automatic car doesn't mean you know how the car works. I don't know anything about cars, like actually cars, but I have to learn. If I want to go off-road and create my own path, I need to know how to do manual. So we're teaching athletes how to go manual and understand the building process rather than just hearing it from somebody else. Right, and that's we're letting them take the information to their own hands, comprehend it. Where we've done studies, we did this thing I call the SAQ, which is Spatial Awareness Quotient. And what that is basically is I go into a gym and I take 50 athletes and say, I'm going to have a bag here. I'm going to reach into the bag and I'm going to pull out aspects of skills. One's the takeoff position, how many quarter flips, how many quarter twists, what position in the air, and how you're going to land. I mix that all up and I give it to you. And you now have, okay, boom, 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 and it comes together to make a skill. You go off and you make that skill happen in real life now. How many people, you tell me, Travis, how many people do you think were able to successfully make their skills without dying or having me come in and tell them what to do?
I don't know. I don't want to guess wrong here.
Full wrong answer.
Utilizing your system, I'm gonna hope.
Using my system yet? This is just a test. I'm actually testing their system, the traditional two-dimensional pathway. When I give them a new novel experience, let's call it, how many of them out of 10, let's say, do you think were able to use the two-dimensional to solve my new three-dimensional problem?
I'm going to be super conservative and also very, generous with this. I will say 50%.
50%. Zero.
That's what I thought you would say.
Not one person, not one. And we did this with freestyle guys in trampoline parks. We did it in traditional gyms. We did it with team gym. We did it with all these different aspects. People, and it just showed me, and we did this for about a year now. Like, it wasn't one gym. We went gym to gym. We did about 500, 600 different people now, and so this is not one person that's probably just there training. This is a thing across the entire industry that just shows these kids don't understand. And to me, that's a safety problem. People are saying freestyle is unsafe, but it's like, well, hold on. You guys don't even know what you're doing even in the gym. So that you have no idea what's going on. You're literally just regurgitating instructions most of the time. And my test proves it. And anyone who wants to think that I'm lying, I will come to your gym for free and I will do this test with you and we will see what happens, And so this is where once we realized that, we said, oh my God, these kids don't comprehend what's going on. They're just regurgitating. So we developed a three-dimensional model as a way to teach people what it is to be an acrobat at the very biological level. We have a biological approach to training, not just this cortical thing that says, if I give you instructions, you'll follow it. That doesn't work in the real world. That's the rationalization after you've already done the behavior. I got to get you before you do the dangerous thing, and I have to give you the tools to do it. And that's the three-dimensional model.
And now, correct me if I'm wrong, I may be totally misspeaking here, but does your system also somewhat believe in the fact of trying to eliminate spotting on tricks so that guys can still be able to execute them without the need for a spot so that they can overcome the fear and develop a skill without another person, right?
Yeah, and I'm not going to say that coaches aren't good. I'm going to say that coaches will help you. They'll guide you just like anybody else. A good mentor will always get you a little bit farther than you would have done by yourself. But at the end of the day, if you're depending on that coach, then it means you haven't really learned from them. And that's straight out of B.F. Skinner. The more the coach does, the less you do. And these are equal things as you go across the scale here. So we do, I at least push a hands-off approach because we're dealing with a market that doesn't have a coach. If you have a coach, they can help you out a little bit. That's great. I still think you should be, maybe only 10% coach, 90% athlete driven. But at the end of the day, we're dealing with kids in their backyard trampolines. Who's going to spot them? Mom and dad? No. So if I need you to do a double backflip and that's what you're telling me you want to learn, well, then I'm going to devise a way for you to do it by turning out and going off axis and building it up systematically where the coach is just filling in gaps. That's what coaches are. When they're hand spotting, they're basically saying, you don't have enough power or technical ability or spatial awareness to do this, so I'm going to come in and do some of it for you. And the idea is that the coach then backs away as the kid learns. But I'm saying, well, I can get blocks. I can do different techniques. I got millions of different ways to get you to do that. I don't need to touch you at all. And I don't even hand spot Cody's. I don't hand spot Kabooms. I don't hand spot all those traditional ones that you normally do because we do the whole three-dimensional model, which when you do it, it's 360 degrees times 3 axis, right? That's cubed. It's like 48 million. That's 48 million paths I can get you to take on that doesn't make you land on your head. Why wouldn't I just get you to do one of those instead of me busting my bicep, getting you over. Plus then it means I'm taking credit from you, right? People don't talk about that part of coaching, that the more the coach does, the less the athlete can feel good about themselves. So we're dealing with a market of kids that basically want to give themselves credit. They're there to basically say, I'm a worthwhile human being because I did that triple or that quad or that Kong gainer or whatever it is. They're doing that to give themselves confidence. So we don't want to take that away. We just want to give them a tool that says, hey, when you're having a bad day and things aren't working out, remember this, and that'll give them again back on track, and then they can build whichever direction they want.
That's amazing, man. It makes a lot of sense when you break it down from that. And for me personally, like I've obviously grown up in this world, so like everything you're saying makes total sense. But I feel like even to someone that's an outsider that doesn't understand exactly the technical terms we're talking about, they could probably see the benefit in trying to develop a system that doesn't require spotting, like you said, because the majority of the kids that are participating in Freestyle Tramp now are doing it in their backyards without a coach, not inside of a gym, without, with the exception of maybe a couple friends they're training with. Like you said, you don't have all those advantages of a traditional way of going to school or studying it. So that makes sense.
Yeah, and that's the thing. What we've seen is that, the traditional way, the teach to test method, as they call it, has shown really bad results in school. And that is the old traditional model of you do as I say kind of thing. And we're saying, how about you discover what you should be saying or doing? And we can help you create an environment. And that's what the FTA is, the Freestyle Trampoline Association, is our way of giving a virtual structure to these kids, even though I can't be there with them every 2 seconds. But I'm doing like psychotherapy on Instagram. We're doing webinars with these kids. We just had a parent yesterday tell us that, hey, my kid wants to learn about sponsorships and all that sort of stuff. Can they come and do a residency with you? We'll pay for a couple weeks of their travels and whatever, if they can come basically work with you for a part of a school project or college or university. And we're now taking co-op athletes and with their parents. And it just goes to show you, this is not just a way of training, it's a way of life. A lot of people look at freestyle like it's a sport and all the rebel dumbass kids do that. No, that's not what it is. It's the kids that don't fit in somewhere else. And if you're not going to give them at least a structure that they can control, then God knows what they're going to do instead. And I would rather give them a structure and a community to be part of where we can all kind of work together than this whole, well, if you don't do it my way, hit the highway kind of thing. That doesn't work in the 21st century, not with these kids.
And you just alluded to Freestyle Trampoline Association, which is what I was going to segue into next. How long has the FTA been around for? And just for people that are out there, what would you define freestyle trampoline as?
Okay, first question. The FTA has been around just for a couple years, since 2017 when we hosted the first real official international freestyle trampoline competition in California, the GT Games. We hadn't formed it before then. We did it after because we realized we got so much response. We're like, oh my God, like kids are coming from Israel and from Australia and Africa. And we're like, holy moly. Okay, so obviously there's a demand here. We had like 1,500 people submit videos online. We had all these different brands saying that they heard about it through the network, so they wanted to get involved, and Fox covered it, and People Are Awesome came out, blah, blah. We just realized, oh, we definitely hit something here. So we made the FTA as a way to kind of make a central hub that has events, that has educational platforms, that people can get information about what's happening, what's not happening. But it is more of it's new, and it's definitely new. Like any association, like the FIG, the Federation of International Gymnastics, they've been around for a long, long time, like almost 100 years, I think. Probably before then. But so they've been around, and we're basically getting started. But what we're doing is we're making it a community thing. It is not us telling the kids what to do. We basically go to the kids. Like we talked to this one group called Radial Flips in the UK. They basically been helping us with some of our structure of our educational program. These kids, it's a two-way street here. And this is where we're going to trying to differentiate from the traditional association. It's more an association of like-minded individuals that then can all work together to build whatever it is that these kids want. We have just come in kind of as the investors, saying that we know a bit more about business, we can open the doors, we can teach you, but then we're going to step down and we're going to pass it on to the kids and make them the board members, and then we'll end up investing in other stuff, but helping them. But if it's not driven by them, there's no point. It's just then us telling kids what to do, and we're no better than what we're trying to escape from. We want them to tell us what they want, and that's how we kind of build it. And I forgot your second question. I'm sorry.
Second question is just like for people that are out there that have probably seen what we're talking about, how do you actually define freestyle trampoline?
I define it as saying that, are you free to create your own style? That's simple. Do you understand the mechanics enough that when you imagine something in your head, some weird flip with some unique position, do you understand how to break that big skill down into all these little parts, the size of a hair, and build it up systematically the way you pile up Jenga blocks or Lego blocks and be able to not fall down and hurt yourself? It's basic comprehension. And if you understand the underlying building process, then you can literally build anything that the human body can do. If the body can move this way, you can build that movement. And so therefore you're free to build your own style, and therefore you can invent skills. The unique thing about freestyle trampoline compared to traditional is that traditional says, here's the code of points, and you're going to be marked on how well you perform compared to the ideal perfect thing. That doesn't really work, not with these kids at least. And we're saying, well, there's no such thing as perfect. So why beat your head over something that doesn't really exist? Why not go and tell the world how special you are? Everyone's unique. Everyone's got their own neurons and their own biology and circuitry and experiences and all that. Why not amalgamate that into something and use that to create something that's yours, that you can own, that you can take the confidence of saying, I did this. This is me. This isn't the coach. This isn't the system. This isn't the Olympic Committee. This is me that did it. And I think we're in an age where kids want to say, I did it, not because of you, but because I understand it. And we are trying to develop that into a systematic pathway to help these kids stay safe, but be able to unlock what acrobatics really is.
And now this is a question that I'm asking on behalf of myself and a lot of the older generation guys, so excuse our ignorance, but I feel like a lot of people would want to know this as well. So when we're seeing these modern kids doing freestyle trampoline and doing stuff in their backyards that I've never even thought was possible or would have tried as a kid, what's the difference between the trampolines they're using comparative to like the old school backyard trampolines that like someone like myself had? Like, they seem to be able to get an incredible amount of bounce. Is there anything that's different between the two, or are they just have crazy techniques that's allowing them to bounce that high?
No, they're definitely creating more high performance trampolines for the backyards now. And they'll range anywhere from $1,500 to $4,000, and half the price of a Olympic trampoline, roughly. And they are really actually pushing that market. Like, these garden trampoline manufacturers are basically giving Eurotramp and all these other companies a run for their money, because they're making more powerful trampolines. Not even close to as powerful as a string bed, of course. But these kids, what they do, they basically offset that little problem by double bouncing each other. And that's how they do it. Personally, I think some of them go a little too crazy. But at the end of the day, you're always going to have extreme tails of the distribution, no matter what you do. So I don't focus on the extremists, we'll call them. I'm focused more on the average kid in the middle that isn't really doing that. If you actually see the videos of how they really train, it's very modest and very light, low impact. It's really nothing that crazy. But once in a while, you'll say, oh, okay, today's the day. And then the kids all come up, and one guy puts on the speakers, the other guy gets the throw mat, the other guy's a double bounce partner. They do their huggy dab thing, for maybe a little too long. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, it's go time, And then it's hit that trick, And those trampolines though are not much different. They are black poly beds with slightly better engineering. They have a bit of airflow technology with different stuff like that, with different size holes, because the size of the holes makes the big difference. Obviously, that's the difference between a black bed and a Olympic bed, is that the Olympic bed has big holes, like this, yes, compared to basically very small holes. And so the mechanics are no different. It's just they're using a bit better technology in the Olympics versus these guys. But these guys have circumvented that and said, well, if I double bounce, I can get up 20 feet anyway.
I was just going to ask you that too, because some of the videos I've actually seen guys filming out of the second story of a bedroom to film their buddy's trampoline trick. And so I was just going to ask you, comparative to these outdoor tramps and even back to your days of doing, the octuple full, how many feet in the air are you getting above the trampoline?
When I'm doing it on, let's say, the super, which is the super tramp, which is what most people know me for, I'm going about 28 feet high, because the top of the trampoline to the top of the rafter that we can jump and touch before we go for the skill, they tell me it's like 28 feet high. So and these kids they can go up that high. There's this one kid in New Zealand a couple months back for GT Games. He did 7 flips, kaboom, with like 3 guys on a super double bouncing him, and he would have at least gone 28 feet, if not maybe even a bit higher.
That is insanity, dude.
When I saw that, I'm like, this guy is gonna die. But there's nothing you can say, right? And he even lands on his head. But that's the thing with these kids. And this is really making me rethink everything. I'm just scratching my chin, saying, you just land on your head on 6.5. How are you okay? He's like, it's fine, man. It's all right. He's just like, oh, chest is a little sore, but it's fine. Let's go again. And I'm like, oh man, so these are like Nitro Circus kids. These are the kids Travis is going to want to hire one day to do shows. You know what I mean? And so you got to understand they have a different mentality. They have a different rationale for it. So it isn't about safety. It isn't about pure control and all that. If you want to have pure control, go do yoga. You know, this is about being a bit out of control in hopefully the right doses. And this is where we're helping guide these guys at what that dose should be. But at the end of the day, it's two different mentalities. And the more that the traditional guys think that they should think the way they do, despite the safety concerns and all that, the more they're just going to push them away into a whole nother thing, to the point where they're unable to actually positively affect them, right? Because these kids, like I said to you on our last discussion, these kids come to the gym, just like the tricking guys, and they basically got shooed away because they were unorthodox. Didn't mean they didn't want education. Didn't mean that they had a death wish. It didn't mean anything. They basically said, well, I want to do this anyway, so I'm going to find somewhere else to do it if you're not going to help me. And a lot of the traditional guys don't understand that they were the first ones that turned them away. They invented freestyle more than they want to admit. We just came in after and said, oh, okay, well, don't throw them away. They're not bad kids. They're not stupid. We can work with them. And we basically invested in them because we saw something unique. And I'm still learning from them. They've taught me more about coaching and understanding human behavior and stuff like that than any of the certifications I've taken on Canada's team. I know that's a terrible thing to say. They're going to hate that, but it's true. I use almost none of that, but I use everything I'm learning from these kids. It is a way more holistic approach to education.
I mean, you definitely have to adapt and keep up with the times, otherwise you'll get left behind. So it makes total sense, man. And now this is a question just kind of drawing upon your experience and the fact that you're, part of the FTA and the head of it, and you obviously have a wider knowledge. Obviously, a lot of the videos that I see are focused upon kids within here in America, but where do you see are the major hubs for freestyle trampoline or practitioners around the world? Is there a major hub besides America, or is the majority of it happening here?
America, I think, was the first ones to really get in the spotlight. You had Tanner Brongart and all these guys in California, and obviously the Grav guys, and they really popularized it at first. And they're in California, so it's kind of not that they didn't do very good work, but it's easier to do it there because you got almost everything perfect. It fits with the Cali vibe, the tie-dye shirts and all that. So it became big there. But then it sort of leveled off a little bit because a lot of the problem, and this is where we travel a lot, so I see two different worlds. I see Europe as being, Europe right now, to answer your question quickly, is the hotbed. All pockets around Europe and that's where they're really going with it because they're getting trampoline parks to endorse it. In America, it's a different mentality. Everyone thinks everyone's getting sued, which personally actually is not true. Some studies show that only like 2 out of 10 lawsuits actually are getting filed and stuff like that. So it's more of a mantra that people think about America, not necessarily 100% true, but it still is enough to damage their aspect of it. So these kids can't go into parks. They can't go into Sky Zone and do quad flips and stuff like that. So there's just isn't enough of that nurturing for them. So a lot of these kids are in their backyards, but they're eventually going to have to get into the parks. And that's why we do all of our events in parks, right? Even GT Games now has gone to a park because we can control the environment. It's easier to get them in there. It's better for everybody in every single way. But America has not really gone. We have a whole bunch of partners that do it, but we're going to have to build that up. In Europe, it was much easier and faster. People said, hey, do an event. Yeah, bring in 100 crazy kids to do crazy stuff. Yeah, I got to throw them at, no problem, easy peasy. Yeah, insurance, no problem. You become a writer on our insurance, and here's your own insurance. And we all just kind of did it. It wasn't a problem, and it's still not a problem. But America is tougher. But California still is a big scene, but they're transitioning more into parkour and tricking as well. So we're seeing this crossover now, and I'm getting trickers now coming to G-Tramp and freestyle and all that, but we're seeing guys leave to go parkour. So it's really becoming one aspect of these kids' lives, and we just trying to make sure that aspect is taken care of, but we see a lot of crossover to what you guys are doing.
Okay, cool. And now one of the things that I kind of want to just put out there just for some kid that may be listening right now, 2-part question. First one is, what advice would you have to a kid that wants to get started in freestyle trampoline and has zero experience at all? What advice would you give them to start their journey? And then what advice would you give to a kid that's maybe a little bit more experienced and wants to get involved in what you guys are doing? How can they join along?
All right, for the first question, I would say that if you're brand new, what I tell everybody is do a couple things. One, send me a couple videos of you doing whatever it is that you're doing, and I can kind of help guide you. A lot of kids send me videos, and I kind of just do the little speaker thing that you have on Instagram and just giving them little tidbits of advice. We start with that. We have online education on YouTube. We have a whole bunch of tutorials there, but we have even more on the FTA website. And we have a whole online educational platform. So just message us or go on the FTA program or FTA page. You'll see it's all there. And that will give you a step-by-step guide of where to go, how to do it safely, but under your own terms. And then we also have webinars that go with that. So you can Skype in with us regularly, and I can literally work with you while you're doing your skill, and I can talk to you through certain aspects that you can't cover in a tutorial, obviously. But then I'd say is when you've done that, get yourself to an event so that you can see what the community is like. Education is only one aspect. Get yourself to the GT Games as a VIP, just spectator, or to a Tramp Champ event, which is a smaller qualifier, and just come and hang out and watch and see what it's like and see if that's really for you. It's not for everybody. Some people, you'll see some of these kids, they'll land it hard. This is like WWE meets trampoline. You know what I mean? Like some of these landings are rough, but they're getting out of it. So I would say make sure that this is something that you want to do, and then we can help you with that. And then for an athlete that's already been involved, knows it, but wants to get even more involved and sees this as a future and wants to almost invest in it in their sort of way, I would say contact us as well. We have tons of different projects all around the world with different groups of influencers and athletes and brands that we are working together to try to create this community. And we're always looking for people that jump on board, because if it's made by the athletes for the athletes, then that's the best thing. And I'm really just one small piece of that, but they're everyone coming together. So we are happy to get anyone that wants to get involved.
That's awesome. And now, are you guys affected at all with your current schedule for 2020 with the current situation and everything that's going on with quarantine and COVID and stuff like that?
Yeah, everything's just been pushed back, though. We have a very good, dedicated following, because people see what kind of emotion we put into this and all the dedication. So they're not asking for refunds or anything like that. This isn't the ticket to a baseball game. This is a community that's sticking together. So all we've done is told them that we're going to postpone everything a little bit, and we are really focusing on tightening up this whole educational platform for them in the meantime. And then once everything kind of gets handled with the COVID situation, events are back on, and I predict that they'll be even better because everyone's going to be ready to go and get out of the house. So we're going to just try to keep up with demand and reschedule everyone as fast as possible.
I'm excited, man. I was planning on going to the one in San Diego I think you guys had coming up. That it would have happened, what?
Here we moved it to a traditional gym, which is funny because it shows that traditional guys are starting to get on board. I know that it's easy to bash traditional versus freestyle, but the reality is we're seeing a lot more crossover now, and we're seeing traditional gyms saying, okay, these kids do exist. I was in denial at first, but I know that they exist now. So all right, let me kind of help them as much as I can. Greg, what should I do? And we're getting called up by Cirque du Soleil and Red Bull and different federations and different people all trying to figure out what this new thing is. And to be honest, we're still trying to figure out ourselves, of course, but we have a handle on it. So we are helping guide people and just asking people to help us. We're not here to do it alone. We never said that. It's just people at the start kind of cast us out because they didn't see the investment. Remember what you said with Pasha, right? He was a couple years early. I kind of feel the same way, but people are finally realizing, all right, well, you can't beat biology. There's a freestyle aspect to many sports, from dressage to rallying to tennis with John McEnroe. He came in and got all freestyle for a while. Everyone has that offshoot eventually develop. So don't try to ignore it. Let's work with it and see what we can learn from it.
That's awesome, man. And they're super lucky to have someone like you at the forefront of it, spearheading this, because, as someone that's had an influence, and not to pat myself on the back, but people tell me this, like I've contributed a decent amount to the tricking scenes and things like that. I know that a lot of the times it's work that goes overlooked and often unthanked. And so I'm sure that the community is very, very lucky to have you as a part of it, man.
Thank you. And I'm sure that everyone, because whenever people talk, I told them that we were going to have an interview with you, and I got a bunch of messages, and they're like, oh my God, Travis is a God legend, bro. Stuff like this, the kids. So and it's really nice to be able to kind of talk to someone that knows what it's like, because I feel like you can understand it. Sometimes I talk to people and they're just like, yeah, whatever. You just set up a bunch of events and put some education down, and that's it. Well, how hard is that? I'm like, you have no idea how hard that is. Like, to get a group of people internationally to all agree on something. Let's just go to that base. To agree on anything, to get any human to agree on anything. Oh my gosh, so it's cool. It's very cool. And it's something that it's an amazing experience. Even if this whole thing just doesn't work, or we end up losing the structure, or something happens, life happens. It'll still be something that I can look back on and say, I don't know anyone else that's really done it right from the beginning like that. So it's a really good experience for me, and I've learned so much, even if it doesn't work out, that I'll take for whatever I end up doing with my life.
100%, man. Definitely a lot to be proud of. And now I kind of want to just shift before we get out of here, just put a little bit of spotlight back on you to ask a couple questions before we leave here, which is back in the day, for kids out there that are interested how you got to such a high level of groundbreaking moves. How many days a week were you training personally back in, let's say, the highlight of your career when you're putting out all these videos? And then second question to piggyback off that, do you still train at all these days?
I'll answer your second one already. No training. I'm so busy, because the thing is, people don't realize, you're like, okay, so you hop on a plane, then you're onto a train, then all of a sudden you miss a train because some guy jumped in front of the tracks in Europe. So now all of a sudden you're delayed again, and then you get to the hotel in Europe. It's famous for this. They close so early, and so then you're like, okay, now it's like 11 o'clock, and when am I going to train now? Then you get up and then you do the event, and you're running around trying to make sure the event's going well, or the clinic, or whatever it is, that the last thing that's on your mind is jumping around, And after 25 years of jumping, I fried my neurons in a sense where I don't even feel the stimulus of the flip anymore. And I think a lot of people don't realize that's going to happen. But it will happen to you. And eventually a backflip will feel like walking, to the point where there's no excitement in it. And not that flips aren't cool, but it's a law of depreciating returns, basically, and that happens for training. So no, I do not train much. I will bounce with the kids, and once in a while they'll bounce me, and I'll do like a quick cat twist or this, that, or the other. But I'm just like, I'm just kind of playing. It's more for you guys. I'm here to build a structure, and that's where I get my enjoyment now, having already done it. And when I was a kid, though, it consumed my life. My life was wake up at like 7 a.m, go to school till about 3:30, from 3:30 to 4. My parents would have dinner heated up for me. M&M's Meat Shop, they're famous out there. Everything's pre-made and everything in a microwave into my lap when I'm sitting driving to half an hour of training. Training starts at like 4:30, depending on where I was at the time of my career. And then you're training till about 8:39. And then you go home, and then you do your homework until about 11, 12, depending on how much you care about it. And then you go to bed, and you're up at 7, and you do that for 15 years throughout your entire high school and most of your college. And people don't realize that's what it takes. I added it up. It was 14,500 hours roughly of training that I've done over my career. And it's funny, I hear these kids after like a year or two, they're like, oh man, I'm an expert. I'm like, no, you're not. You don't know it. By my level, you guys are recreational athletes doing cartwheels on beams on the ground. You know what I mean? That's the kind of hours you put in. So I would like the kids to, and they are learning that it takes time, so it's a full commitment.
That's crazy. And I mean, they have that saying, right? To be an expert, you got to put in 10,000 hours or something. You actually did the math, so.
I actually had to. Well, I did it for a university project because I went to university for kinesiology. So I have a lot of exercise science behind all this. And I went to the psychology and biology of everything. And I actually calculated it, and I calculated how much money it costs to do it traditionally. So when I added that up, it was about $250,000 and 14,500 hours for me to be on Team Canada. That's what it took for at least me to get to that level, which I know a lot of people want to get to that sort of level, and obviously a bit higher if they're doing the traditional route, but that's what you should be expecting. Otherwise, if that's not what you're committing for, go pick something else.
That's awesome, man. And now one of the other questions I'm going to leave on, just kind of piggybacking off of that, which is you already talked about it, how like, your neurons don't even necessarily fire the same way because you've done it for so long. And not to scare kids out there, but this is true, man. I can attest to this too, that I don't get the same rush during certain things that I used to, and it's kind of scary. But with that being said, after all the years of putting in 14,000 hours of training and everything that you've done committed to this sport, how does your body feel after all of this? Just for to give kids a perspective, obviously some of them are so young that we could have had them as our kids at this point. How does your body feel on a day-to-day basis?
Not bad at all. Like I don't move as fast as I did, but you give me 2 reps of 1 minute each, I can get my splits back down.
Wow.
I know. No autographs, please. And I could still do handstand. I did a handstand challenge like just like a while back, and I could hold it for like a minute. Like I'm still I would say when you give me 1 week in the gym, I would still be a junior level athlete.
Okay.
I guess that would be the easiest way I could give you some kind of relative terminology for that. But I do walk like a little bit kind of like hunched over because gymnastics does this and everything. I'm definitely less flexible. And like there's a drinking game we play sometimes, which we call caps. And you
Yes, I
put,
know caps.
yeah, you know caps, right? So you put the two bottles there and you try to knock the other cap off, like the crown kind of thing. When I sit there, I'm like, ooh, and it takes me a minute and I got to get into it. I'm like, oh, okay, all right. And then when I'm getting out, I'm like, whoa, I guess I need another beer, And so you are slower when you're, I'm going on 30 and in May. Oh, my birthday's soon. I totally forgot about that. But anyway, so I'll be 30. And so I feel like I'm slowing down, but I'm not out of the game. I don't want to ever be out of the game because the worst thing about it for me is, it gets to a point, I guess, and you can tell me if you have reached this point when you do your training. When you're training, you hate stretching and hate conditioning, and you have to do it, but it's part of the game. Then there's a point when you stop doing all that and you kind of are retiring. I'm basically retired. And then you actually feel bad when you don't stretch and you don't condition at least a little bit. And then it's like, oh, I should just do some push-ups or handstands or something. But, oh, I want to get this work done. Oh, I got to do a handstand. And then there's a bit of that sort of battle. And but yeah, it's you do try to get to the gym at least once a week. And lucky for me, I'm at the event with the kids, so I still bounce there. And I'm still doing clinics and things, so I bounce. But people don't expect me to do, 8 tuple full anymore or anything like that.
Totally. That's crazy. I can totally attest and validate exactly what you're saying about that whole cycle of knowing you need to do it, kind of stopping doing it and knowing where you're at now. I'm a few years ahead of you on the timeline as far as age is concerned. So I'm hitting this, I went through that cycle and now I'm hitting this like next level where I'm starting to realize the limited amount of time that I may be able to be at my physical peak. And so it's almost been this like humbling and terrifying realization where, as you'll see on my page, I'm trying to put out content of me training, doing parkour POVs and stuff like that. And it's almost like I'm starting to see the candle wick, burning out. And I'm seeing the sand in the hourglass really start to get to the end. And now I'm like, holy crap, man. I would give anything to go back 20 years and restart this cycle again. But it's scary to think about.
I wouldn't, I like what I do now. There was a time and place where all I wanted to do is jump on trampoline and do the next biggest trick. But I've already not done them all, but I've definitely beat that drum pretty well, and eventually it's like, okay, but what if I do get a new trick? And what? And what? And what? And there's a point where even doing new tricks has a plateau, sort of effect. And you honestly are better transitioning smoothly as you can into more of a business role, admin role, and figure out what do you want to do for your life. You're not going to do backflips on grass in front of cheerleaders when you're 70 years old. That's not how you're going to pay your bills. No one pays for that. So I would say by the time you're getting 25 to 30, that should be when you're starting transition. And by the time you're like 35, you should be now fully in depth into some kind of business arrangement that at least plays on the physical movements you used to do. So you're not just ditching it because you already invested all that, but it doesn't, you make a smooth transition, not just one day, oh, I'm done. Because you don't want to do that. You want to make a smooth crossover.
100%. And I think that leaves us at a great point to ask the question that I always ask everyone before we get out of here, which is, where do you see yourself 5 years from now? And where do you see yourself 10 years from now?
5 years, I would like to say that the FTA and freestyle trampoline is good, and we have, a nice world championship series that is, nicely formulated, and everything is doing quite well, and the kids are running most of it, and we taken actually a bit of a backseat, not fully, but take a bit of a backseat, and you can clearly see who the next generation of kids are going to literally run the FTA are. I would like that in about 5 years. And then in 10 years, I would, we're already starting to look at opening our own gyms and doing all this other stuff. So by then, hopefully that will be by itself kind of just chugging along. And then I can now invest in other stuff. We're doing VR and AR, and we're doing app development and all these kind of things. Now, kind of like you, we're doing all the different business stuff because I'm a go kind of guy. And I'm hoping that then I'll be able to, by then, also have a few of those more solidified so that I have a nice, good portfolio by the time, I'm 40 years old and thinking, hopefully, trying to retire by the time I'm 40 with my residuals.
Right. Fingers crossed for the both of us. That's amazing, man. Well, yo, I really appreciate you taking the time to come on here and share your individual story and also everything that you got going on with Freestyle Trampoline. I don't think that it's a fad. I think it's something that's going to continue to evolve from here, and we're just seeing it at the outset of it. So more than anything, I appreciate having someone that's a pioneer and someone that's at the forefront of it join us. And can you just let people know where they can follow you personally on your journey and also where they can follow Freestyle Trampoline online?
Yeah, if you just go to Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, anything, just Greg Roe Trampoline, all one word kind of thing. And if you want to check out the FTA and get involved, it's just freestyletrampolineassociation.com. Nice and easy because we're in early. That's the benefit. You get a good URL. So just go there, send us a message, and we're always looking for people to jump in and jump on board to our journey.
Hell yeah, man. Thank you so much. I hope everyone goes over and checks it out.
Dave, I hope so too. And thank you for having me on your show. I've been a big fan forever, and I'm going to continue watching, and hopefully I can come back on when things have developed a little bit more and give you an update.
100%. And hopefully I'll be making out to one of the events when everything resumes and we get back to a little bit of normalcy. Can't wait.
Yeah, well, we need a judge for GT Games anyway.
You got the number. Hit me up.
Okay, I definitely will, man.
Hell yeah.
Having me.
Thank you so much, man. Hey, yo, guys, please remember to hit that like button, comment, subscribe for brand new episodes each and every week. Join us every Monday for Jam Breakdowns and every Friday for brand new JAMCast, interviewing influential members of the movement community like Mr. Greg Roe himself. So as always, guys, I got to give a very special shout out to our sponsor, Inner West Hemp. Please be sure to visit them online and use the code JAM to save 20% off all your CBD products and needs. As always, guys, I got to give one more very special shout out to our guest this week, Mr. Greg Roe.
Thanks, Travis. That was a blast.
Yes. And as always, guys, coming through and sending sincere wishes for health and happiness during this time. I'm your host, Travis Wong. Thanks for joining us here on another JAMCast. Until next time, we'll see you all soon. Peace.